You know what? It doesn't really matter because we do finally have the Congresswoman online. That's what I was spacing because I was waiting to see if she was ready. Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman from New Jersey. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
You've got a good camera, Congresswoman. You look good.
And I love your dress. Very stylish.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
We're sitting here in the middle of a conversation about the new health care bill that just finally got revealed to the senators in the Senate and those of you in the House who are waiting for it as well. Your thoughts on the new bill that the GOP just revealed yesterday?
I haven't had an opportunity to see it, listen to a lot of commentary, a lot of the discussion that's sort of taking place on the Hill. People have even characterized it as meaner, meaning in contrast to the bill that the House sent to the Senate. I know that it negatively impacts New Jerseyans. We'll lose something like almost 42,000 jobs, more than 500,000 people who have care right now will be negatively impacted and could possibly lose will lose their health care at some point. This is very problematic for hospitals that already struggle with charity care. It will increase our charity care. And New Jersey probably is one of the states that, in terms of economic growth, is probably going to have its growth diminish more than the majority of the other states. So it's not good for New Jersey. It's not good for jobs. And it doggone sure isn't good for health care for those who need it and should have it. And it should not be predicated upon how much money or how much wealth you have.
Well, Congresswoman, thank you for your perspective. And Obamacare certainly did predicate subsidies based on how much you made. It set the threshold for subsidies at 400% of the poverty line. And Republicans moved that to 350% of the poverty line, and that's $80,000 for a family of four. You're still getting subsidies, and $80,000 for a family of four is 52% higher than the median household income. So this is a lot of relatively well-off people who are still getting subsidies under the Republican bill. So can you help me understand how you think that would hurt people when we're still giving money to pretty rich households to get subsidies?
Oh, wow, that's impressive.
Relative to the national median, absolutely.
Okay.
If you're making,
let her answer the question.
Sure.
That's an interesting characterization, that even $80,000 with a family of four in this country at this time is a sense of wealth. When we're talking about
if the country's median is 52,000, then it is.
Initiative right here, which is emboldening and increasing the wealth to billionaires. And we shouldn't have this discussion about whether or not you should be at 350% of poverty or 400% of poverty and have access and subsidies to health care. Because even with the subsidies that were at 400%, we still needed to improve Obamacare to ensure that more people had access to health care. It was more affordable and it was more comprehensive. So anything less than what we had is problematic for everyday working families. And this bill and this proposal that came out of the House and is debated now in the Senate, to the extent that it's debated at all, is a shift in wealth and priority. And the priority has become, as it's almost institutionalized, and we haven't too long, to the very, very wealthy at the expense of everybody else in our society.
Sure. Congresswoman, I know our time with you is limited. We wanted to ask you about your membership in the Congressional Black Caucus, where you're a leader there, and the news this week that President Trump had requested a meeting with the caucus again, and that meeting was turned down. Can you walk us through that decision?
So there was a very comprehensive meeting with our executive officers and Donald Trump several months ago. We laid out a plan of action, a list of concerns, 130 or so pages of information that said these are the policies that we're concerned with, these are the proposals that negatively affect our communities, and these are the things that will advance equality of opportunity and of services. We've heard nothing. We've heard nothing in response to those substantive issues. So we're not interested in having social chit-chat with a president whose administration daily unveils policies, proposals, executive orders, or utters things that negatively impact African American people, minority people, immigrants, poor people, working class people, middle class people, any and everybody but those people who seem to represent his priority, which are white, male, and wealthy.
Well, Congresswoman, I'm sure that Secretary Ben Carson would absolutely disagree with that characterization. Would you be willing to meet with Secretary Carson instead?
I would be willing to meet with Secretary Carson if he wanted to discuss substantive issues. He doesn't seem to operate from a basis of knowledge of what it's like to be Black in America. He is an anomaly, and he does not represent the sort of core value systems or concerns that are expressed throughout the Black community, whether you're a wealthy part of the Black community, a middle class part of the Black community, young part, old part. So sure, I mean, I would meet with him if he'd like to meet, but I'd like to have substantive discussions about.
Sure. Well, maybe we can have that on.
Isn't he still stuck on an elevator somewhere anyway?
You know what? Maybe we can have him on Bold TV, and you can join him, and we'll have a dialogue. I would love that.
I'd like to have a conversation with him offline.
Maybe
it would be necessarily productive to have it online.
Yeah. Well, some of the things you've been talking about kind of bring up a question for me as a Democrat who obviously watched the Georgia special election this past week with some degree of disappointment. The resistance and the decision of the Democratic Party, or the decision the Democratic Party has to make about how to respond to this particular president and what I think is some incredibly ineffective leadership, wasn't really effective for us in Georgia this week. I think we all maybe mistakenly called it a referendum on this presidency, and then that ended up not working out the way we had hoped it would. There's certainly still within the Democratic Party this argument between what the best path forward is, and there's been a lot of talk in the last week since that Georgia election about the current state of leadership in the House. There have been a few more people this time around who have called for Nancy Pelosi to be replaced as the leader in the House. What are your feelings on the path forward for Democrats if that particular strategy in Georgia didn't work, and whether or not Leader Pelosi is the person to lead us into 2018?
So I don't think that this president has appointed very qualified people to his cabinet, even those that have come out of the Congress to take these positions. But I will tell you that he has cherry-picked them out of the very red, ruby red Republican districts that have a history, a legacy of electing Republicans. So I am disappointed that Mr. Ossoff didn't win. I'm disappointed that there had to be that much money used in this election. But it doesn't surprise me that he didn't win in a district that is so Republican. And as far as leadership is concerned, our leadership is in place until we have the next selection among our caucus. And I think that people don't understand the complexities of the leadership here and the challenges that we are facing. I think that considering this environment in which we are operating, our leadership is keeping our caucus together and strong and focused.
But
Let me talk about the message a little bit. I think that perhaps we need to drill down our message a little bit and have conversation face to face, because at the end of the day, I think the difference between the Republican control down here in DC and the Democratic aspirations is that we need people to understand that we represent everybody. We want everybody to have access to good jobs, good public education, safe neighborhoods, good housing, affordable housing, and healthcare, absolute healthcare. And in addition to that, we want to make sure that wherever you live, you're breathing clean air and drinking drinkable water. Everything I just talked about represents the antithesis of what this Congress has been doing down here and what this president has been advancing. Our leadership is keeping us engaged, relevant, and focused on where we need to go.
But
I'll give you mad
Congresswoman-
props. I'll give you mad props for that answer because you didn't quite answer whether or not you would support Leader Pelosi. I mean, yeah, of course, she's in place until the next election by the caucus. But would
I
you
do support Leader Pelosi. No, the question I'm sorry, Clay, that the appropriate question is, do I support her?
Would you
Of
vote for
course I
her? Would you
support
vote for her in election?
leadership.
Would you vote for her in election
I have no
today?
idea if she'll even be interested in the position at the time we go through our midterm elections. And when that time comes, that is a time when I will be considering where I should be in this issue.
That sounds fair.
That's fair.
That sounds fair. Well, thank you very much, Representative Coleman. We know you got a vote coming up, so we'll let you get to it because we need every single Democratic vote that we can get.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Or you can
Thanks for
keep
having me.
staying and talking
Thanks
to
so
us.
much. Appreciate it.